You've got a big event or race coming up and you want the fastest, best performing chain possible. Well, there are a few mistakes that even experienced cyclists make and some things that might sound a bit counterintuitive. So don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do it. So the first thing is, yes, this is going to involve waxing. Of course it is. Performance waxers with low friction additives have been shown to be the most efficient lubricants for drivetrains. They save you precious watts, but they also attract less dirt, meaning that as your race or event progresses, your chain is attracting less dirt and therefore doesn't become as inefficient as you progress. Also, they just help your components last longer as an added bonus. Now, the first big mistake that people make quite often is for their big race or event, they get a brand new chain. Now, having spoken to several experts from several different brands over the years who make lubricants, and also the engineers at Ceramic Speed, they've all told me that new chains tend to be slower, significantly so, than a used one. And when I say a used chain, I don't mean something that's worn out. I mean a chain that's just been ridden a few times, but is still nowhere near approaching its wear limit. The engineers at Ceramic Speed reckon that this is because new chains bed in. When you first ride a brand new chain, there's a sort of polishing that occurs between the metal surfaces as they articulate against each other throughout the chain. Think of it as sort of breaking in the chain. And as a result, this can be worth a couple of watts. So don't use a brand new chain. So what would I do and what should you do instead? Well, first I'm going to explain simple procedure if you already do wax chains and how to optimize it. And then I will quickly explain what to do if you're new to waxing. So the first thing to do is to take the chain off your bike. Now, the easiest way to do this is to always use quick links. I've just taken this chain off my Pinarello downstairs. And what I would recommend here is that you get yourself a Whipperman quick link, which looks like this. They're different from a traditional quick link that you would get on, say, a Shimano chain. And the key thing with these, and we're not sponsored by them, is just they are designed to be reused, whereas the Shimano ones are technically single use only. So this makes life much easier if you're waxing chains. And these things are said to last the lifetime of the chain that you're using them with. Now, what I tend to do with my chains, because they're all waxed, is I will put them in a jar and then I will put some hot water in the jar and I will just swirl them around in the hot water. Now, the great thing about wax is it melts with hot water, so that helps take it off and take off the previous wax that was on there, and that will carry a lot of dirt away with it as well. You can go a step further and use some alcohol or some degreaser if you want to give it a bit deeper clean, but most of the time I wouldn't do that. The next thing I will do is simply just dry the chain and just run it through a microfiber cloth, which is just really effective at just taking off surface dirt, just like this a few times, just to get it nice and clean. Next, we're going to wax it, but if you're chasing optimum performance, you need to know that not all waxers are equal. There are performance waxers out there which typically contain friction modifiers as additives. Now, these are compounds that help reduce friction. Some of them are top secret, others are known about, such as molybdenum disulfide, which seems to be quite a commonly used compound in these performance waxers. Now, performance waxers are more expensive, but they are also more efficient. So if that's something that is important to you, now you know. As for Cyclo Wax, who we work with, this is their race wax, their top of the range performance wax. It has these nice rainbow colours on it. That disappears when you melt it. It's just for aesthetics. That doesn't help improve the performance. But the key thing with this is it has been independently tested to be the fastest wax out there on the market at the moment. So good stuff. Right, what we're going to do is pop that puck in the wax pot and we're going to heat that to 95 degrees. Now, you don't have to use a dedicated heater like this, but it is useful because it is thermostatically controlled to get to 95. one thing to bear in mind if you are waxing chains and trying to get the optimized performance is you need to pay attention to the temperature, because these waxes can be temperature sensitive and you might be impacting the potential performance of that wax if you heat it up too much. If you don't heat it up enough, you're not going to get the wax to properly flow and permeate into all the links of the chain, because it'll be too viscous. So I'm going to turn the heater on, and then while the wax is heating up, I'm going to put the chain on this swizzle wire. A swizzle wire is not essential. People use all sorts, bits of string, spokes, and all sorts of things, coat hangers, all things. But the thing is with this is it just makes life a bit more convenient, and I'm all about anything for an easier life. Now, in terms of how many waxes you can get out of one puck of wax in the pot, Cyclowax recommend 6 before there's too much contamination, but that will depend on how contaminated your chain is when you go in there. So if you do spend a lot of time cleaning your chain, giving it a good deep clean so that it's immaculate when it goes in there, it does become a point where it is sort of almost indefinite re-waxes within a pot of wax. Wax is up to temperature. Gonna put the chain in. Make sure it's fully in there, in the pot. So I'm just gonna agitate the wax, swizzle the chain around. This is just to help get the wax to permeate inside all the links and rollers. And then once I've done that for a couple of minutes, I'm gonna turn the temperature off and pull the chain out. You then simply let the chain cool, and then you can fit it back onto your bike. Now, initially, it will be quite stiff. You can sort of see that there, it's in like perfectly straight lines. And so you will need to break it in. This typically takes about 15 to 30 minutes of riding with this particular wax. Some waxes can take longer, and it's also impacted by temperature. In colder conditions, it will take longer too. Now, the way I typically do this is I will use my warm-up before my race that I'm doing to break in the chain, or if it's an event where I don't need a warm-up, like a big Gran Fondo, I might go for a quick ride the day before just to get the chain broken in. And one thing I would recommend is don't break your new chain in on the indoor trainer unless you're prepared to clean up a load of little flecks and bits of wax that will come off it and shed off it. Cy calls it wax dandruff in that initial first time you ride it after it's been waxed. Now, performance wax chain like this should be good for at least 400 kilometers, and that's something that has been found by legal Trek riders who have been riding and racing with this stuff. But as I mentioned, we are sponsored by Cyclowax. But independent testing from Zero Friction Cycling has shown that this particular wax does actually perform really well in wet and dirty conditions as well, should your race be like that. One thing to bear in mind though is that the lifespan that you do get out of your wax chain will be shorter in those kinds of conditions and will be longer in perfect nice dry conditions. So what about if you're new to waxing and you're not race prepping a chain that's previously been waxed? Well, the first thing I'd recommend is that you buy a brand new chain and strip the factory grease from it and go from there. This is because if you're using a chain that's previously had wet lubes on it or oils, then it will have a lot of contamination on it. Now, it is possible to clean that chain and remove all of that, but in my experience, that's going to take several sort of decontamination cycles. It's going to take quite a bit of degreaser and solvent, and it's kind of just not really worth doing. It's worth sort of just having that chain as one that you might use oil on, and then just getting a brand new chain for this. So my favourite way to do this is to put your brand new chain in a jar, and then put in some degreaser in there to help break down the factory grease, shake it up, and then get rid of that, and then repeat that, but with some kind of solvent. So either an alcohol like this, or you can use some petrol or some acetone, and that just gives it a further clean. Shake it, get rid of that, and then just rinse the chain with water and then just dry it again with a microfiber, and you should be good to go. And the next step will be to simply just wax the chain as I just showed you. But it is important to remove factory grease or any kind of grease and oil before you put your chain in the wax, because that will not only contaminate it, but it can also interfere with the chemistry of the wax and degrade it. So it is worth being quite conscientious when you do use some solvent and try and remove that factory grease. Now, if you have just waxed a brand new chain, then remember what I said earlier, you're going to want to break that in first. So go for a ride on it, go for a couple of rides on it and use it before you race. And then just before your big race or event, re-wax it, and then you should have an optimum chain once that's broken in. Great. Now, hopefully, armed with this information, you can go forth and create yourself the perfect optimized wax chain for your chosen event. And well, the only downside is that now you have one less thing from the big book of cycling excuses that you can draw upon if you get dropped, like me. Anyway, hope you found this useful. Gonna go now. Love you, bye.